Hello and welcome to We Quilt Studio. Today I am going to show you another reason why it's really good to have Embird Studio, which is otherwise known as Embird Digitizing Tools. It just makes your knockdown stitches so much prettier, and I'll show you what I mean. The pink knockdown stitches, and let me hide the butterfly, I made these in Studio, and the blue knockdown stitches I made in Editor. And the reason why they just don't look as good in Editor is because you don't have as much control in Editor as to like where your start and stop points are going to be for this knockdown. And it just, it's a stitch program. It's like comparing a raster to a SVG, a JPEG to an SVG. So we want to make our knockdown in our vector program, our studio, Embird Studio. So the first thing I did was I made an outline or a contour of this butterfly. Here's the contour that I originally made. Let me hide the blue again. And I did make that here in Editor, and I did so by, let me hide it, I'll bring back the butterfly, by taking the butterfly, and I'll just go ahead and do, so I have the butterfly selected. Now, this is just the outline that I haven't really stitched the outline yet. It just looks better without it, I think. But at any rate, so I click on the butterfly and I go to Insert, Effect, Contour, and I believe I did inflated 2 mils, ignore cavity, stitch length 2.0 is fine, 1 layer, and I got these 2 items here. I'll click on the blue, so it generated right above the butterfly, so I know this is the object in question. And there's 3 items to this object, and the 2 here are the stragglers in there that we don't need. So we'll just separate the first item, right click, separate item. Oh, I must have clicked separate all items. And then we'll just click the straggler, hold control, click the other one, and hit the trash can up here. And so now we're left with this. And we're going to take this into Studio and make our knockdown in Studio. Because if I made it here, if I clicked on it and did Insert, Effect, Plate, and see, it's already inflated. So I don't really need to inflate it again, but I think I will, just because, you know what, I'm going to try and not inflate it this time, because it's already inflated. So let's just see what that gives us. So I'll say 0 inflate, ignore cavity. We want to fill, and density of 30. We want it loose, but not too loose. Fill 1 is fine. Uncheck all the underlay and leave everything else as is. And I'll hide the butterfly. And you can see this next blue one up here. We've got, let me hide my outline. Okay, so here's the blue that generated, and it's just not correct. You don't want your knockdowns to have these travel stitches and whatnot. and just the ugliness of everything. It's just too hard to work with to edit this. So we're just going to delete it, and I'll hit the trash can. Embird 2022, it seems you have to hit the trash can a lot to delete something. So at any rate, so we're going to take this here uh, outline that we made, and we're going to take it into Studio. And I'm actually going to copy the butterfly, Control C, Control V, and I don't need the outline. I'm just going to delete that color, and then I'll make this, I don't know, maybe I'll make it orange just so I know the difference. And I'll have it selected, and I'll hold Control and click the outline, and then I'll right click, Edit Stitch File in Studio. I just wanted to bring the butterfly with me so that if I have to change the shape of the outline, I'll know where the butterfly begins and ends and whatnot. So they come in as manual stitches because they came in from editor, so these are just regular stitches. So I'll select them all by sliding over them, go to Convert Manual Stitches to Connection Stitches. Now they're all connection stitches. Then I'll do Convert Connection to Outline. Now they're all outlines. I'll bring them into View, and we don't really need these two, we're not doing anything with them. I'm just going to right click and group them. And what we're interested in is the outline. So we're going to turn the outline into a fill so we can get our knockdowns. So with the outline selected, we go to Convert, Create Fill from Outline. And let's just make these a different color. I'll just make it green. And I'm going to hide everything else. And I'm just going to go into parameters, and fill number 1 is fine. Again, our density is 30. Uncheck all of the underlay. Everything else can stay the same. I could put this to 0, but I'll just leave it at 0.1. It's fine. And you'll see what we got. Now, it looks like the edges are stitched, but that's just the object edges. You have to go into View and uncheck Object Boundaries. We don't want to view the object boundaries. So now you'll see what's really stitching. And we have a little bit of issue here and here, and I believe it's because of this point probably, maybe comes in too far, and we can actually, and then, you have this point coming in. So, when the more irregular your shape is, the harder it is to get a perfect knockdown stitch. And you'll also notice that our edges are boxed off. They're not pointy, and you may or may not like that look, but I'll show you how we can make them pointy again as well. So at this point, we can just leave it as is and just use this in editor, or we can go ahead and convert to editable stitches, and then I'll hide the vector object. This object, let's click it again and hit edit. So it is starting there, so I don't want to have too much going on right there. But I can go ahead and I think it's okay if I just take this line, this diagonal line here, and move it up. So I'm going to click Snap to Nodes up here on the right, and I'll click Edit again, and I'll just snap these to the nodes up there. And sometimes if you zoom in a little farther, they'll snap better. There we go. And this one I'll just delete it. It should be fine. So you can do it this way and just, whoops, and just double these up. I'm going to have to zoom in just to grab that node. Oops, keeps going to that one. And then here, let's see which one I want. I want this one. I can decide if I want this to be pointy or boxed. Now, since all the rest of them are boxed, I could just box this one as well. So I would click here and insert, and I could leave it like that. And let me just select it all and bring it into view. So that one is just doubled up and it'll look fine. It's almost like, it's a double back stitch, so it's not even a triple bean or anything. It's just a double stitch. And I could do the same for this one and this one down here. Or I could just, because the reason why these are funny like this, it's because of the dip. You've got a dip here with this point, you've got a dip here with this point, and then here you've got a really tight, dip in through here. So if this were a rectangle, you wouldn't have these issues. And you could just leave it like this, like I said, if you don't want to do all this work. But the other thing I could do, what I was going to say is I could bring these points up a little so that they're not so drastic, and then I could see how it generates, with the fill, with this original fill. And I'll just make these like brown or something, or maybe not brown, but I'll make them purple. So then I'll show you my other option. So since these little indentations are so deep, I could just work on my original here, the green fill, the vector object, and I could make this whole top edge a little bit gentler, not with these dips, because remember, if this were a rectangle, we wouldn't have these issues that you see here, the 3, 1 that I fixed, 2, and then this one down here with these dips. So I'll just go ahead and show you kind of a quick way how to make this more subtle. So I guess I'll get rid of these manual stitches for now, and we'll just go back to the original vector object, and I'll bring down a guideline. I probably don't really need to, but I guess I will. And then I'll also bring down a vertical guideline to line up with my 0 grid, if you can see it up there. And the reason I'm bringing this guide in is because I want to snap my vertical node right here to a guide or grid. And since my grid is not showing, that means that I have to go to Edit, Preferences, Grid, and you have to change it to whatever it is, to something else. I'll put subdivisions as 1. since I'm in Mills, and I'll click apply. Let's see, let's zoom out. Okay, it's not working. It locked up on me. So, and that's what happens sometimes with the grid, and I've noticed with the 2022 version, it's locking up even more. Or maybe if I undo it. Okay, there. So if I undo, now I see my grid. So now I can snap to grid because I see the grid. So just so you know, and I do want to kind of make sure, let me highlight all of these. I want to make sure that this is centered. Transform, bring to center. Okay, it did seem to move just slightly, but that's okay. I mean, we're working with stitch, these were stitch files that were converted, so it might be a little off. You know, we brought them in from editor. So at any rate, I want to snap this vertical node, this center node here with the vertical grid or guide or what have you. So I don't really need, I'm going to erase the guides for right now. If I didn't want to mess with the grid issue, I could have just brought in a vertical guide and looked down at the bottom and made sure that my X value in the bottom left was at 0, 0 when I let go. And, you know, then edit lock guide. So then I could have just snapped to the guide. So that's one thing about Studio that I noticed, that a lot of times if your grid's not showing, you don't want to snap to grid. In other words, if I click on this object and I go to edit, if I were to click snap to grid over here and the grid was not showing, I would have had locked up the computer. And as you can see, I locked it up anyways, but when I hit the back button, all of a sudden my grid showed. So that's just something I'm not sure, some sort of a fluke with the program. So anyways, you can also see that I have a lot of nodes because I brought everything in from editor. So I'm going to reduce my nodes number. So let me X out of here. I forgot about that. Let me hide these again. And I'll just click on this and I'll go to transform, reduce nodes number. I'll go to 7. And that kind of smooths it out a little bit. And then when I hit edit, everything is a little better. But I'm going to still bring down a horizontal guideline. And maybe I'll come to, oh, I don't know, maybe about right there, kind of a halfway point. And I'm going to snap to that. So I'm going to click snap to guide here. And it snaps right there. And then from this point all the way down, I'm going to delete everything. So which way am I going? I'm going in this direction. So I'll start here and just keep hitting delete. Okay. And then here, whoops. Okay. I kind of want to put it, you know, where it doesn't come up any higher than this point, of course. But I don't know which grid line I want to snap to. So let's hit snap to grid. I could take off snap to guide, and I can even take off snap to node. So I'm only snapping to the grid. I'm actually lower though, so that isn't okay. So I'll snap to the grid, but I am going to have to snap up a little higher. So I'll bring down my horizontal guide and set it right there. And now I will snap to guide and grid. So now it'll snap right to that point, that intersection. So then I'll be doing the same thing over here. So I'm going in this direction, so I'll start over here. Let's see, with this node, and I'll just keep hitting delete. And then I'll snap this to 20 and the guide. So then these are exactly the same. So I'll just hit enter or the check mark for that. And I'll bring it into view. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. So I'm going to zoom in, and you can use your plus on your keyboard. I don't have a plus on this small keyboard, so it's kind of a pain. So I'm going to bring down this guide to maybe about there. I'm not sure. I thought about bringing it all the way down to here and just have this, you know, all of this come down here, but I'm not sure how good it would look. So I did kind of, let me unlock these. I did kind of want some sort of a little curve there. So when I hit edit now, let's see. Since my ending point is here and I don't want to deal with it for right now, I'm going to just click away and fill endpoint there and my start point, because you don't want to have to deal with it here. So I guess what I'll do here is maybe I'll snap this to, and it looks like my guide is still here. So my guides are unlocked. I thought I got rid of that. Okay, so I'm snapping to grid and guide. I'd like to maybe bring it down right here. So I might have to, let me see if I zoom in some more. Okay, so more of my boxes are showing now. So that's good. That's because I set it to 1 mil. So you'll see a box every 1 mil. So I guess I'll bring this down. But however, I don't want to mess with the integrity of my original object. So for right now, I'm going to just Control Z to get that point up, and I'm going to X out for a minute. Not X out, I'm going to just hit the check mark, because I do want some of the things to stay, especially the first thing that I did up there I want to stay. But I think I already hit the check mark for that one. But since I want to snap to the nodes of this object, of this green object, I have to copy and paste it. Control C, Control V, make that one yellow so I delete it later. And now when I go in to edit the green, when I bring this one down, I can have snap to, I'll just click on this and add a node there. No. Click on this and add a node. Click here, add a node. So I'm snapping to object edges and grid and guide. But I don't, let's see. This guide here I did want to snap to, so I am going to keep that. So I'll go ahead and snap this up here so it's snapping to the guide and the object edge of the one that I'm copying, that I copied and pasted. And then the same thing here, I'll just insert to make that square. I'll just snap that. I'll delete this one. It's kind of in my way. So sometimes because I have grid and guide selected, I'll uncheck grid. This one doesn't know where to snap. There we go. So those two are snapped, and then I'm going to bring one just to, let's snap to grid now and take off guide. I'm going to just snap it right there. And then these, I'm just going to delete them. Well, let's see. Okay, there's the guide right there. I could actually snap to that guide. So let's delete these. Okay, so it's snapping to the guide and the object edges. And down here, let's see. Now I don't have guides selected. Oh, the guide is on the grid, that's why. So I want to take these all down. These two here, I'm going to take them down anyways. So I'm going to turn these two circles into squares. So with this selected, I'm going to hit add and then add. And then now I'll delete this one and we'll just make this straight. So right now I've got guide and grid showing. I'll uncheck grid and I don't really need object edges. So now, actually I do because I want to make sure this is straight. There. So edges and guide. Yeah, this guide. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing over here. So we'll delete this one. The arrow is pointing this way, so click on this to make it straight. And that looks straight. Now, these two are off because this one's not on the, you see this one's in between the two squares and this one's actually on the intersection. So I'm just going to move this one out, but I have to snap to grid. So I'll snap that to grid, I'll snap that to grid. And now this here though is not going to be symmetrical anymore. So we could snap it there and there. How's that look? Not bad. That's not bad. And to make it even better, I don't know. Should I do that or should I just leave it? We'll just see how that goes. Everything looks symmetrical now. And I have my start and stop down here. So let's decide, because sometimes your start and stop will affect how, let me delete this yellow. Sometimes your start and stop will affect how this is going to generate when I generate it. So let's go ahead and bring it into view. So that's our new shape. Let me hit save. And since there's a lot going on down here, I don't really want my start and stop there. Even before I start doing this, I'm going to make it here. So I'm going to place my start point here, and I'll say maybe place my end point. Let me zoom in. I mean, I don't know for sure if that's going to affect anything. So then make sure my parameters are correct, 30, and uncheck all the fill and click apply. And let's see what that did for us. All right, then it doesn't look like, let's do edit, erase guides. It's perfectly clean now. So, and let's see how it looks with the butterfly. So that's quite a bit of knockdown up there. Maybe you don't want that much. So maybe I'll bring it down a little bit more. So let's hit edit and I'll snap to grid only. And I'll just bring this down. Let's see, if I brought that down, I really made it small there. I'll Control Z and leave it up there because those two should be the same. So let's see how that generates. I mean, that's a little better. There's a lot of knockdown right there. I guess you could probably maybe try to make this gentler. So in other words, this would have to be turned in to a, click it and turn it into a square node, and click this one and turn it square, and then maybe snap that down. Remember, you don't want to get back to where you were before, where it was so drastic, but still, let's see if we zoom in to get the rest of the grid showing. Maybe if I brought it to 16, and this is what, 16 and 39. How would that look? I mean, it might not be too drastic, so let's go ahead and bring this one down as well. $16 and $39. So I'll hit the check, bring it into view, and let's see if I messed it up. So it did introduce something down there, which is interesting, and that can happen sometimes. So you may think to yourself, well, do I want to mess with this down there? Because that's where that point is. And then looks like there's a lot more going on down there. I don't know. You know, you've got this all by itself. It's probably going to be a separate object. So you may think to yourself, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to mess with that. So I'll just undo it. Undo. And now we're back to that. And it is possible that maybe I could have just come down deeper with this. I could try it. Or you may be like, no, that's fine. Those knockdowns are just fine. But let me just see. So if I hit edit, and let's say I just bring this down a little bit, and maybe snap these to that grid and that grid. I don't know. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it looks like I might still have looks like it's a separate object down here, but it looks like this one ends there. I could just connect those. And then up here, I have the slanting. Let's go back into selection. You know, I have this I'd have to edit. So, but let's bring back this. Go into 3D. This would be behind. So I don't know. For me, it's kind of, it's okay, but I would probably, because I'm so OCD, I'd probably come in and edit this down here. I'd probably bring all of this down, and I'm in 3D. Let me go into vector view till I see my grid. Hit edit. I'd probably insert there and insert there. Snap that to the grid. I'm snapping to grid. And insert, insert. Which is the one? This one. Edit. Oh, that one's, well, you can see my design's not centered, or the way this was generated in editor is not centered. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to try and snap to this grid where it wants to snap. Okay. And then I would just, my arrow's going that way, so let me click here and see what happens. And make that straight. So this one as well doesn't really want to go on the intersection, and I don't know if I still have that other object, but I'll snap to object edges and see. It does kind of want to snap to something. This one's fine. So I'll hit the check mark, bring it into view, and let's just see. So I still have two areas that I would want to fix. Do I want to fix those? I don't know, maybe. But the only way to do it is to convert this to editable stitches, because you can't edit stitch points of a fill when you're just working with a vector object. You have to convert to editable stitches. So now you're editing stitch points. And we don't have that many objects here. So in other words, these all are going to have tie-ons and tie-offs. So I guess I'm okay with this. Let's just see where these are all starting. So there's that one, and then that one, and then it skips up there, and then there. I may just off the bat change the order. So I'll right click and insert before. So now it's that one, that one, that one, and that one. So this one, if I click on the second one and just right click create connection, I can see they're starting and ending in bad spots. So if I clicked on this one and hit edit, so this one's ending here, obviously. So let me hit enter. And let's hit this one and see. If I hit edit, starts here, it ends here. If I were to create a connection between the two, I would have a connection that I'd probably have to make a straight line going up to it. And do I want to do that? Probably not. Probably not. So I would probably let that go as a tie-on and a tie-off. So get rid of that connection. And then this one, let's just see. So from here, where did this one end? Let's just see. If you click on the next one and just do create connection, you don't have to think as much. Okay, so this one is ending way up, over here, but the next one is beginning way up there. Well, where is it ending? Let's see. So it's ending way over here. So the previous one ended here. I could make a double row of stitching all the way to there to alleviate the tie on and tie off. Do I want to do that? I don't know. I don't know if I want that much double stitching because I already have to fix these two. So what's the worst of two evils? I don't know. So I might just let that go so I have less work. Or I might say, you know, I don't want to have all those ties on my knockdowns. Maybe I will create that connection. So it's up to you. And then between there and there, if you just right click create connection, you have kind of the same issue. So then here, if you recall, it starts here and ends there. It's not going to help us. So the way this generated, I'm probably going to have these ties. So, which is fine. I mean, it still is a pretty knockdown. So what I would do then is just go in and edit the two objects. This one down here, I'll hit edit and zoom in. And so this line is slanted. I'll probably make it, I'll hit edit and I'll snap to node only. Oops. To zoom in more to grab that node. It's actually snapping to its own node, so it's trying to snap to its own node so it won't snap. So let me X out, and I'll have to make a copy of it to snap. One sec, let me make this purple. Let me do Control C, Control V and make it yellow. And let's see now. There, it snapped. And then when I get to this point, I may what I may want to do is insert a node here and snap this up here. Snap this down to the grid, because that's where it seems like the other ones are snapped. Actually, these are not. Actually, I better just bring down a guide instead. Let me hit the check mark. And so I have my guide right on the other, this line here, and I'll just follow that line. So I'll go back to editing, and I'll just snap to guide right now. And it looks like they're on the grid, but I'd have to really zoom in. So I'm just going to leave it on guide. So this one would have to come down here. Could have made this come over more, but I'm just going to let it go. And I'll just snap these to the guide. So there, that looks better. So I'll hit enter. And I'll bring it into view. So that's just kind of doubled up, and that's fine. And then this one up here, so I can get rid of this yellow. So this one up here, let me get rid of the original because it's kind of getting in my way. So it's not that one. So it's that one. So again, maybe I'll just make a copy just in case I need it. So I'll hit edit. And I'll just snap to node. So uncheck everything except snap to node. And then this, I'm just going to delete that. And then for this one, I'm going to click on this node and hit insert and just make it squared off. That's fine. And I'll hit enter or check, bring it into view. And so get rid of the yellow, I'll hit save. So then that's what we would be dealing with. Edit, erase guides. And we would have ties here. But that's okay. So then I would save this. So this is how it would look. And let me just generate the purple. Of course, it wouldn't be purple, but, and if you recall, the orange is what I had brought in from editor. I had brought in the orange and I brought in the blue outline and the orange. And I actually converted both of them at the same time when I did convert manual to connection and then connection to outline. I did it on both of them and I really didn't have to. I could have just did it on the outline only, because now if you look at the orange, yes, it looks like a fill, but if you look down in the items window or the parts window, it's saying it's an outline. Well, that's because we converted it. So that may confuse you now. So my point being, when we brought them both in, I should have just converted the outline and left this as just manual stitches. And then maybe it wouldn't look so confusing now, because at first when I looked at it, I was like, why is that an outline? And then I remembered, oh, that's right, because I converted it at the very beginning, manual to connection, then connection to outline. So anyways, so this is how it will look. And it almost looks like there's not enough up here. So I don't know what happened. I guess I must have made a mistake when I did it. So, because this one looks like it's up high enough. This one is not. Now, is this the file where I expanded it again? No, I did it to another butterfly offline. I expanded it to 3 mils instead of 2. I think when I was editing this one, it actually does kind of look like it's lower down here than up here. So maybe I should have expanded it to 3 mils in editor. I mean, I could go through it all again and expand it here in Studio, you know, another mil. Like I said, I could go back to this original fill, the vector, and edit this to bring this up. let's see, I could bring this down, you know, and then bring these nodes up to meet that. Lock guides, and then snap to guide, and just snap this up. And then snap to the same guide over here. So then I would delete these. But I lost where this one was, so I made a mistake, sorry. So let me copy and paste this just to show you, and I'll make it yellow so I know to delete it. So now when I come over here and edit this, and then when I edit this side, and when I have to end up deleting this one, when I come over here, I'll snap to node now only. There it is down there. There it's snapped. And then this one should still be snapped. I don't think I moved it, no. So then I would have to do everything all over again though. So because this is my original vector. If I wanted to fix that mistake I made up here by not having enough. So I'd have to go through the whole thing. So then this is, everything is still the same. And I would go ahead then and convert to editable stitches. But then I'd have to do all that editing all over again. Let's see what it looks like, just out of curiosity. Hide that and hide that. So there's only 4 objects still, and it looks like I only have one thing to edit. So that's kind of nice. So I can go ahead and just do that if I wanted. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I'll mention it in a minute. Let's see, so I'll snap these up to the top. Snap to node is on. My stitch lengths on here they're pretty long, I noticed. I noticed that off camera, and I had forgotten to check for that. They're almost like 4 mils if I show you with the tape measure. So what I would do is, whoops, I might have to zoom in on that. I would convert these manuals here. Sometimes if you drag it to the right and then to the left, and then up rather, you can grab the correct one. But if I want to have control over this stitch length, and I'm going to click this since the arrow's pointing to this, I can insert a node, and I'll just snap it up there. And then that would be it. The only other thing I would want to look at is maybe the order of the stitching. Oh, I bet I might be able to fix that. Let's see. Create connection. I doubt it. Let's just see. Yeah, it starts here and ends there, so I really can't. I thought I'd get lucky. So I'll just switch these two. So then this one and then that one. And let's just see. So that's pretty huge. Let's see. That's ending there. Let's see if I flip those. And then this one, it's starting here and ending there. So neither way helps me. So we'll get rid of that. And let's just look at this one again. I think I'd rather reverse that, just so it doesn't start up there on that point. And then this one, you know, what's the worst of two evils? Either starting here, where you've got the butterfly head and the antennas, or starting there. This one, I think I'd rather flip that way. So then, you know, I could use this one instead. And now I've got more up there at the top. So then I'll just get rid of this one. But I'll make this one purple so we could see it better. And hit save. Now as far as the stitch lengths, what you'd want to do, because let me show you, if I generate this and I go with my tape measure, if I click and look over here, we got 4 mils. That's too long, I think, for a knockdown stitch. More like, let me just hit escape, 2.5, maybe 2.7 for a knockdown, something like that. I mean, you want it to be tighter than 4. And I think 2.5 is pretty good. So we'll just select them all. Let me just bring them into view. And you'll want to, and we're going to see, let me just hit save. Sometimes you can't convert after you've done a lot of things. Sometimes you lock up the system. A lot of times this converting manual to connection should be done at the very, as the very first thing you do when you open Studio. But let's just see, manual to connection to outline. So it did work. So now we can go into parameters and set them for, you know, whatever we want. 2.5, we'll say, and apply. And so that's nice too. You have control over your stitch length. So now everything is really perfect in this knockdown. The only other thing I would have changed is maybe I would have, like I said, come out 3 mils from the beginning, because coming out 3 mils here on the sides and everything would make this look less, you know, different. It wouldn't be as drastic as a change. There is another trick that you can do to reduce the amount of ties here, you know, the amount of jump stitches. And the reason that we can do this next trick is because we converted those manual stitches to outlines. And now that they're outlines, we have more options. And that is to just select them all and go to branching up here. Arrange outline parts. I call it branching. And if you click that, you'll see that it created all of your objects as travel stitches and backward pads, meaning there's no more jumps, no more tie-ons or tie-offs, just at the very beginning and very end. The only difference is you have a double layer of stitches when you branch. So here is that double stitch. You can't see it when I zoom in, but it was right in here. That double stitch where I lined them, you know, where that slanted line I snapped to the row before it, well, that will now become 4 layers of stitching. So, you know, when I generate it, you can't really see it, but the density map, you can. They're not orange, meaning orange means that it's, you know, really dense. They're not orange, they're still yellow. So, I mean, you could do it this way. It would make a really nice knockdown. Or you could have left this slanted and still did the branching. It's up to you. So I just interjected this as just an afterthought. So when we come back to the video, when we go into editor, you're going to see the 4 objects again, like it was before. Now, if I go into 3D, you know, everything looks fine. I zoom out, it looks fine as well. So it's up to you. You have so many choices. You could have even tried transform combine. So if I undo, when you have the 4 objects, you can try transform combine, but it's probably not going to work because that usually only works, here combine outlines, that usually only works when you have the nodes, you know, the end of one node touching the end of another. So if I click it, nothing happened. Let's see. I'm wondering, see, this looks like an endpoint. I'm wondering why I didn't try that. Let me just see what happened. See, these two look like they could be connected, so I might have missed something that I could have. So that's 6, object 6. And that's object 5 and 6. And let me right click on this one. Create connection. So it's right there. I could turn this into convert connection to outline and then just made it 2.5, just like the rest of them. And then these 3, I could combine outlines. And so now we have just 3 objects. It put it down there. I could put it back in order. So now we have 3. But when you do that, it's interesting because if I wanted to branch this, you see the branching went away. And that's because these don't look like normal outlines anymore. So what I do is I click on one and I hit edit and I just reverse nodes of the whole thing and I see if that works. And it did. So now you can take them all. You could leave it as it is, single, but at least your branching is here, and now you can branch if you want. And so you're back to that. And you do get less parts to your branching because you started with just 3 objects. So let me just undo that, and I'll just keep the 3 objects, Control C, Control V, and then I'll make these like a lighter purple, and I'll branch these. So then I'll have 2 choices here. They're both the same shade, so maybe I'll remember. So just know when we go back into editor with all of this, that you aren't going to see these objects. You're going to see the 4 that I originally created here, because this is just an afterthought that I'm interjecting into this video. So then this would be the doubled up one, generate density map. Okay, that looks better. Just had to zoom in. So here's the ones that are doubled up. So there you go. Lots of choices with Studio. Lots and lots of choices. And this may just make a better knockdown for you. You may like it better. And if you don't, then go to the one with, say, the three objects up here, or the 4 objects that you'll see when we get to editor. So that would be it. And so then you'd save it, and you have to remember when we go back, we're not going to keep this orange, we're not going to keep the original green vector shape, and we're probably not going to keep the outline either, but I'm going to just keep them all in Studio. So we'll compile and go back into editor. And I might have, in the interim off camera, I might have accidentally gotten rid of the original. So I might have to pull it up again. So 1 sec. Okay, so I brought back the butterfly that we were working on. So here it is here, the purple butterfly. I hid the outline just because I'm not really going to use it as of yet. So there's the purple butterfly. Let's take this that we just brought in from Studio, and I'm going to right click and separate color. So that's my actual knockdown, and I'm going to put it before the purple butterfly. And then all of these little objects here were the ones that I said I'm not going to need once I come into editor. So I'll just get rid of those. So then this is what we would have. So there's my knockdown, and you can see when it says trim 4, there's 4 trims. That gives you pretty good idea of how many objects you have, or how many items you have in this object. So if it says trim 4, you have 4 little items here. And let me turn it a different color so I could see them when I highlight them. I'll turn it green for right now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And they all have tie-ons and tie-offs on them. And if I turn it, and let me just hide the purple, so there it is again, and it's just beautiful. And let me bring back the butterfly again, and let me make this now the same color as the fabric because that's what you would be doing. And so that's how it would look. And that's really nice. I like that. I like it better than using a motif or anything like that. I just think the horizontal lines look really pretty as a knockdown. And like I said, you could have made these pointy, and I can't remember if I showed you how to do that in this video. I don't remember if I edited that out or if I don't know. But I'll go back into Studio and show you how to make it pointy if I had forgotten. But this is what you would have. And let's just click on it and bring it into view. Whoops. Oh, it's because if you bring it into view while one of the items is selected, it comes into that item. So there you go. So I would save it. It's untitled, so I'm going to save it. And that's because I had accidentally gotten rid of it off camera, so I brought it back. Okay. And so I'll go ahead and show you how you could make these edges pointy. So you'd have to work off your original. So you basically have to start, off your original vector here. And we'll bring it into view. And you would go into parameters. And let me just cancel for a minute because I'm just going to hide everything else. And I'll hide these. I'll group these and hide them. So here's your original. And I'll go into parameters. And if you wanted these to be pointy instead of boxed off on the edges, then this number here has to be bigger than your density if you want it to be pointy. Because what this is saying now, it says complete row if density is above 14. Well, our density is above 14. It's 30. So they're going to complete the row then. Complete the row means boxing it off. They're going to complete it. So if you want it to be pointy, you just make this number like 35, something bigger than your density. So now it's not going to complete the row when I hit apply. See, everything gets pointy and jagged. And you may like that. You may like that better. It may look more natural to you. They're not all jagged. Down here, you've got 4 rows that are not, 4 or 5, many of these are not. And down here, so it's just hit or miss. So, but that's how you do it. And then of course you would then convert it to editable stitches. That always shows you how many objects you have, and then it shows you what you're dealing with, as far as tie-ons and so on. And you can rearrange them. You can fix this slanted one again, and so on. See if you can make a connection or not. But we're just going to go back to with them being squared off. I think that looked nice, And all of this that I'm showing you is really, really, really being picky. Most people would be like, I don't care. It's just a knockdown. I'm fine with even with this slanted line here. So, but if you did want to get particular, this is the way to do it. So anyways, I'll just X out of it. Here is yet another option for a knockdown. Believe it or not, this is the stipple in the quilt fill. And I change the color, you'll be able to see it better. So just make it a little bit. So there it is. And that's the stipple in the quilt fill, and it's only one layer of stitching. You can see there's no jumps or anything. It's one continuous run, and that's the beauty of the quilt fill in Embird 2022. However, I still had to bring it into Studio to control the stitch lengths because the stitch lengths were way too tiny. So I'll show you how I did it. So let me just, I'll just hide this one. So many objects here. So here's the outline, and this was the outline that I had originally expanded from the purple butterfly. So here's how I did it. I just clicked on the purple butterfly and I did insert, effect, contour, inflated 3 mils, ignore the cavity, clicked OK, 2 mil stitch length, OK, and I got these extraneous little pieces, and it always comes in above whatever you started with. So here it is here. Here's all the items. These are the pieces here. So click on the first item, right click, separate item. So there it is there. Here's the extraneous, trash, and then, you know, you have your outline now. So that's the same outline that's up here. I'll just delete one of them. So then this outline, we're going to make our quilt fill from. So we're going to go insert, effect, cavity this time. We're going to uncheck ignore, and we're going to inflate this by 2 mils. So altogether, the 3 that we originally did for the contour plus the 2 now will be 5 mils altogether. And I don't know why I did it that way. I just somehow, I don't know. I felt it would be better to break it up, but you may be able to just do 0 on one and 5 on the other. I'm not sure. But so 3 and 2 is 5. So it's 5 mils total. So uncheck that and click OK. We're going to quilt now because this is the tool that allows you to get one layer of stitching, and either with the stipple or the wanderer, and you know, it's continuous. It's one layer and it's continuous. Now the stipple allows you to get your distance tighter. It's more jagged, but it's going to end up being jagged anyways when we set the stitch length in Studio. So stipple lets you go 1.4, wanderer just lets you go down to 2.0 in distance or density. So 1.4, random, 0 on these. Stitch length 2.0 is fine, doesn't matter, we're changing it anyways. And we'll click OK. So there it is, and I'll hide the outline. Click, and you can see though that the stitch lengths in some places is just way too tiny. Like that is if I click here, click, and just hold and hover, it's 0.6 mils if you look down at the bottom right. That's too small. We have to take this into Studio so that we can control the stitch length. So we'll right click, edit stitch file in Studio, click on it, convert manual to connection, convert connection to outline, parameters 2.5, apply. I didn't bring it into view, sorry. There it is, 3D. Let's just zoom in, and it looks like our stitch lengths are better. They're not as small. I mean, these are small, but they're not bad. Let's just see. 1.54. So I wouldn't want to go any smaller than 1.5 on stitch length. So that's about as good as we're going to get it. And I'm happy with that. So that would be it. And so we'll save this and we'll compile and put it back into editor. So that was really quick. So here it is here. I'll move it in front or behind rather, the butterfly. Set it the color of the fabric. And there it is. And if you look at it with the darker color, I mean, it does look like I've got enough coverage here. So I think the 5 mils is a good number to use. So, 3 mils is about 1/8 of an inch. 4, 5, 6 mils is 1/4 of an inch. So this is somewhere in between. So I think that's a pretty good number. So that was pretty quick. And so there's yet another choice. Now, which one looks better? Let me change the color back. Okay, so you've got this one. It kind of, your eye just goes all over. It was quick. Or would you rather see, so it was this one. So you have that one, which is very dainty and very refined. It takes a little bit longer. Then you've got your jumps. Or you can go with the stipple, which is quick. It's real quick. And it follows the contours exactly. And it's pretty nice. And I think it will knock down quite well. So there you go. So many choices, so many choices. So there you go. So it just really pays off to have Studio. You can use the 10% discount just on Studio. You can use it on anything, any of the modules or anything you buy from Embird. So just keep that in mind. And I'll leave a link below on how to get the 10% coupon code. You just get it off my website and then use it in the Embird eShop. And you can always write me at wequiltstudio.com on the contact form, or you can write me on Facebook, Lisa We Quilt. All right, then, you have a wonderful day embroidering, and I'll see you next time.